Welcome to another exciting installment of the Isolated Literary Society, and the first installment of the Isolated Literary Society presents Cowboy Feng, Spacebar and Grille by Steven Brust. We will be starting the book today. Thank you to everyone who was here on time, even though I wasn't. I'm really stoked to be reading this book. In case you missed me talking about it on the end of our last stream or at my concert on Saturday, this is an awesome sci-fi novel with a very weird title and a very weird cover, neither of which I think really accurately represent the book, but sometimes that's how it be like. Extra special thanks to Steven Brust for giving me permission to read this, because it's not in the public domain. He is very much alive. He kindly gave me permission to read it, which is very, very nice. I was getting stressed out about trying to pick a book that I own, or that my roommate owns, that we have a physical copy of in this house, that is in the public domain that I feel like reading.
Yes.
So
harder than you might think.
Yes. Well, we already went through 2 Jane Austens.
Yes.
And then it was like, we need a change of pace. And I definitely pushed it, pushed my luck, maybe not pushed my luck, but I kind of tested my luck, that's better, with The Little Prince, which is in the public domain, but I don't know if the English translation is. The original French is. Anyway, so no one from Catherine Wood's estate has come to yell at me yet. So
yes,
fingers crossed.
And Neil Gaiman doesn't seem upset either.
Yeah, and Neil Gaiman gave general permission for people to read his stories to kids and students, and I was just kind of like, but aren't we all kids at heart?
We're students in the school.
We are all students of life and stuff.
Yes.
So, Michelle, I could have tried to read it to you in the French. I could have made my best effort. Pepper is here to let me know that he wishes attention and food. Well, you have food in your dish, but you may have as much attention.
Better food.
Yes. It doesn't.
He wants other food.
Different foods. Anyway, so here's your little kitten moment before we get started with the book. So, to my knowledge, there are no cats in this book. All right. So, if everyone is ready, I'm giving enough time for people to get their notifications and get here to the stream. Let us begin with Cowboy Feng's Spacebar and Grille. Chapter 1. I've been a wild rover for many a year. The wild rover. Traditional. Cowboy Feng's Spacebar and Grille has the best matzo ball soup in the galaxy. Lots of garlic, matzo balls with just the right consistency to absorb the flavor, big chunks of chicken, and the whole of it seasoned to a biting perfection. One bowl, along with maybe a couple of tamales, will usually do for a meal. As for entertainment, Feng gets some of the best Irish musicians you'll ever hear. Good instrumental backing, fine singing, some stupendous fiddle playing, and driving energy. Hell, some of the songs are actually Irish. I was there that Thursday, sitting in my favorite booth, back middle, just under the picture of the big, grinning Chinese fellow with the mustache and the cowboy hat, while I waited for the rest of my band, the jig makers, to finish tuning. It's my favorite booth because you can see the whole dining room to your right and most of the tap room to your left, and you get a great view of the stage. Aaron, don't make me laugh when I'm trying to read. Aaron just posted in the comments, there are no cats in this sci-fi book. Trying to read. It's a very serious book.
I am trying to read.
Please. We weren't playing tonight, but Fred, the manager, let us use the stage to practice. The place used to have live music every Wednesday and Thursday, as well as on the weekends, but it didn't pay, so Fred canceled it. He was the practical sort. Not me, I'm sentimental. This has caused me any number of difficulties, but there it is. The other problem is that I'm easily distracted. Sorry about that. Where was I? Oh yeah, Thursday. Which reminds me, Did you hear the one about how after the nuclear attack, the town of Sanctuary Venus had to change its name to Sanctuary Jupiter? Anyway, Thursday was the day someone lobbed an atomic warhead at Jerrysport, Mars, and reduced it to rubble. It was damned uncomfortable when the bomb hit. We must have been within a mile or so of ground zero. If we'd been much closer, that would have been it for us, if we'd been much closer, that might have been it for us, and I might never have found out what goats are really useful for, but it wasn't, so I did, and maybe I'll tell you. In any case, I was knocked to the floor, and then I rolled and something fell on me and I blacked out for a while. It hurt to wake up again, but I didn't mind too much since I was having a confused dream about Irish ghosts and they all looked like geeks.
Geeks?
Yeah, I honestly don't know if he means geeks as in like nerdy people or like the circus freak type geeks, but that is what the sentence reads.
I've never heard that used before. First, at first I thought it was geese, and you were just like mispronouncing it or something.
That would have been
somehow that made more sense to me.
Well, for a dream, anything goes in a dream. So
right, yeah.
Irish ghosts that look like geese actually just sounds like a weird dream.
Yeah.
Irish ghosts that look like geeks, you're like, wait, what kind of geek?
Yeah. What do you mean?
If I'm remembering correctly, and I don't know if this is the original term of or the origin of the term geek, but in circus freak terms, it's someone who like eats live animals.
Oh,
as a circus trick.
Wow.
If I'm remembering correctly.
A far cry from the way it is used today.
Yeah.
As opposed to freak, which is still essentially the same.
Yeah.
But
yeah. You'd have to look up the etymology of the word geek if you want to figure out what's going on there.
Yeah.
And you have to ask Steven Brust if you want to know which one he's referring to.
Yes.
Hi, Pepper. Okay. Fully conscious, I decided I wasn't injured, since a headache doesn't count as an injury. Diffuse, pale light came in through the frosted windows high on what had been the west wall when the place was built, and the north wall in Ibrium City, and the south wall in London and Jerrysport. The room contained vast quantities of ambient dust. I thought about my band over in the tap room, but they were safer there than I was, here, as long as the pool tables didn't start flying around. I was pleased I remembered them. One effect the jump has, we've learned, is disorientation, to a greater or lesser degree. I'm not sure why. After the first one, it took me a few days to remember even the most basic things, and a month later there were still bits and pieces coming back. And with the jostling we'd gotten lately, it was bound to be pretty bad. I pulled myself up to a sitting position and looked around. Fortunately or unfortunately, there had been no customers in the place, but that wasn't surprising, as I found that business always slacks off when there's a nuclear alert in the city. Someone said, "You all right, Billy?" Billy? I blinked twice. Yeah, that was me. I looked for the voice and spotted a likely-looking pile of debris, likely-looking mostly because it was moving. I stood up, decided I weighed more than I should, and sat down. I tried again, took a couple of deep breaths, and helped remove a table, tablecloth, and part of the booth from Rich Vondrick, who had a neatly trimmed beard, a bear-like build, and the personality of a rabid crocodile on vellum. I'm fine, I told him. You look a bit dusty, though. Yeah? He said. What could have caused that? This was irony. Something about an atomic warhead, I think. So was this. Yeah, he said. Then suddenly, Eve. She's in back, I said quickly. I saw her just a minute or two before it hit. Oh, he relaxed. Okay. See that? I had trouble remembering who I was, but had no trouble remembering who Eve was, or where I'd just seen her. Fascinating thing, the mind. I said, glad you were here. You too. I snorted. I'm not going to get left behind. I have too much to do. Like what? Ask me tomorrow. Right. He looked as if he might be about to argue, but instead said, where are we? As if I'd know. We'll find out, I told him, when the place opens for business. Got your toolkit? Always, he said, glancing around and spotting it. Why? It'll probably be useful in getting the lights working. He nodded. Any idea who else made it through? There was a certain amount of tension in his voice. We'd both known people who happened not to be in the restaurant at the right time. I said, I'm pretty sure everyone did. Good, said Rich. In that case, how about if we ask Libby for a drink? Drink? Said someone behind me. I turned around in time to see a short, pretty, dark-haired woman walking in from the taproom. Hey, sis, I said. How is everything? A moment later, it occurred to me that she wasn't really my sister. I just called her that. Hi, Rose, said Rich. How do you feel? Rose, that was it. I need whiskey, she said. How's the band? Said Rich. Jamie broke a D string, and the bridge on my fiddle collapsed, and Tommy lost his last pick, and we can't find the tipper for the bar run, and I need whiskey. She blinked twice by way of punctuation. I said, but the instruments are okay, right? She cocked her head to the side and said, if the instruments weren't okay, do you suppose I'd be so calm? Damn, said Rich, who only pretended not to like our music. I think. I said to Rose, you aren't scared or anything, are you? No, she said patiently. I just need whiskey. Then she frowned. I couldn't hear it first, though, and that scared me. And it sounds like you're talking through a tunnel, although it isn't as bad as it was a few minutes ago. And I forgot where this room was for a minute. It's the jump, said Rich. My vision keeps going in and out. It probably will for a few days yet. Whiskey will help, said Rose confidently. I went up to the hole in the wall where Rachel's got drinks. Then I turned back and said, Libby isn't here. She was probably in back or something when it hit. I hope she's... I'll look, said Rich. Nothing can happen to Libby, explained Rose patiently. She wouldn't allow it. I tended to agree with her, though I couldn't say so. At that moment, however, I heard her in the kitchen calling to Fred to get the power switches. I felt tension go out of my shoulders. Then I wondered where the power switches were, and it bothered me that I couldn't remember. I closed my eyes and saw my hand reaching to open a metal box. Right, top of the stairs, back of the kitchen. I opened my eyes. What is it, Billy? Nothing. No need to stand on ceremony. I shuffled around to the bar and came up with a bottle of Jameson, passed it to Rosie, and sat down. Thanks, she said, cracked it and swallowed some, and closed her eyes. A beatific smile lit her face. Then she came up behind me, still holding the bottle, put her arms around my neck, and kissed my cheek. We were worried about you. We didn't know where you were when the bomb hit. I was in here waiting for you guys to tune, as usual. Oh, she said, and kissed me again. You could have asked about the rest of the band. If anyone had been hurt, you wouldn't have been so calm. She nodded. Then, you know, she said in a reflective tone of voice, getting nuked all the time is really bad for our practice schedule. Rich held out his hand. Rosie put the bottle in it, and he took a hit, passed it back, at which point Eve came in. Rich stood up, and they held each other for a while. She was short, with long, straight hair that must be called fair rather than blonde. It was a touching sort of scene, the two of them standing there, broken by Jamie's voice from the next room, calling, Rose! She turned her head so she wasn't yelling into my ear and called back, Yes, darling? I need smokes. Coming, darling. She kissed my cheek again and sashayed back into the tap room. I walked over to the waitress stand and got coffee started. Rich raised his head from Eve's shoulder and said, Want to look around outside? I said, You crazy, Charlie? Why not? How do you know we aren't going to get hit again? He shrugged. How do you know we are? I shrugged. Maybe later, I said. Oh, come on. Aren't you curious about where we landed? And when? Yeah, but either I'll have plenty of time to look around or there's no point in it. He made me curious, however, so I went to one of the windows and pulled the heavy blinds aside. It was daylight, and we seemed to be in a light commercial district, if this time and place made those distinctions. There was a great deal of variety in style and size of structures, but judging by a pair of preteen boys who were locking their bicycles and a middle-aged couple who were walking by, the people looked like people. This was good. I was always afraid we'd end up somewhere with one-eyed, green-scaled monsters who eat radios or something. Just people, though. Two women walked by, arm in arm. At the time and place I had left, they wouldn't have done that. In London, they would have, but it wouldn't have had any significance. In Ibrium City, it would have meant they were lesbians. In Jerrysport, it meant even less than it had in London. What the hell? No one was looking at Feng's, though, which was good, even if expected. I'll never know how it's done, but let the record show that I'm curious. The kids finished locking their bicycles. I made a note of the fact that bicycle locks were used, and went into the building directly across the street from us. It showed every sign of being a bakery. I hoped it was a good bakery, so Feng's would carry fresh bread like we had in Ibrium City. My mouth watered as I remembered the crusty sourdough from the place that was now radioactive dust. Great. Isn't it fun how you always remember the right sort of stuff? Presently, Rich stood next to me and watched for a while. I said, I think I'll go see how my band is doing. Maybe do a tune or two. Then I'll worry about the outside. Okay. He looked down at Eve and said, How about it? She nodded, her head still buried in his shoulder. I wondered if she wanted to see the outside or just didn't want to be separated from Rich. He said, I'm glad I put the bike in the back hall this morning. Was that this morning? Never mind. I said, Going to get the power working first? Yep. Good, I said, moving toward the tap room. Have fun. Big, blonde, bearded Jamie was smoking a cigarette and holding a dustpan while Rose swept shards of glass into it. Tom, tall and very skinny, with fair hair and scraggly beard, was blotting the floor with a bar towel. My instrument was, indeed, still in its case next to the table. I sat down and hauled out banjo and tuner, plugged the one into the other, and tuned to an open G. I had a moment of panic that I'd have lost this skill, at least temporarily, but I guess only my head was affected, not my fingers. Jamie said, Shouldn't we help get this place in shape? Fangs, said Tom. Yes, we should, I said. But I'm not going to. Not until we've done a couple of tunes. All right, said Jamie. What should we play? Something we already know, said Rose. Good idea, I said, since all our music is probably buried under 3 tons of flour in the back room. Tom said, We could go back there and play flower music. Jamie said, You're so weird. That's flower, Flower, like hippie music. I think that's the joke.
Oh.
Like flower children.
I assumed it was some sort of pun, but I'd never heard the term flower music per se.
It's possible that it has faded in use.
Probably. I've heard of flower children though, so that makes sense.
Yeah. This book was written in 1990 just for fun, for knowledge.
Yeah, for knowledge.
The 1990 is the period of history that this book diverts from, as is true with all sci-fi books about the future. You have to know what was the present that it diverted from.
Right, yeah.
Fred came strolling through the tap room, turning off lights that didn't work, I suppose in preparation for restoring power. He said, I trust everyone survived the experience? Uh-huh, said Jamie. I heard sounds in the next room that were probably Libby taking care of this and that. I just realized there's way too many characters in this book for me to do like distinctive voices for each one of them like I did with Emma.
Oh, yeah.
There's just like a lot of people, and it takes a minute to get to know everybody. So it's a different sort of writing style than Jane Austen, to say the least.
Yeah.
I picked up the banjo, feeling just a bit guilty, and said, Beggar man. Jamie said, Right. Tom said, Maybe we're so far in the future they don't have beggars anymore. Then we can't play it. Jamie said, You're so weird. I hitched the capo up another 2 frets, slipped the 5th string under the nail, checked the tuning again, adjusted it. Then I said, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And we did it. It's our own arrangement, 3 times through the whole thing, bumping the speed each time, with a vocal verse the first and second. It's a good warm-up tune. I blew the first run-through of the A part at top speed, but that was okay. By the time we were done, we were all much calmer. Just about that moment, the lights came on. Yeah, I said. We played about another 6 tunes. Then Tom put his mandolin down and announced, I'm hungry, as if he were amazed that this could happen. So am I, said Jamie. I could eat, said Rose. Yeah, I said. Me too. I guess that means we ought to find out what we can do to get the kitchen working. I'll ask the Fred unit. I sighed, knowing this meant I was about to be put to work. Nor was I wrong. Aaron has just said in the chat, I also feel guilty every time I pick up a banjo, but for different reasons. Yes, Michelle. Pepper's just, he's just decided he needs to make occasional cameo appearances today to see if I'll change my mind about feeding him.
Yes.
All right. Take the paragraph break as an opportunity for water and chapstick.
It's a good idea.
In case anybody has tuned in late, I see our numbers went up just a little bit. I am reading Steven Brust's Cowboy Feng's Space Barn Grille. If you are lost, that's okay. So is everyone who hasn't read this book yet. It takes a minute to explain what the hell's going on.
That's all right.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that Carolyn, as I was reading it, I'm going, yeah, well, he really just very gradually explains what's going on. But I've read this book so many times.
Right.
And the first time I read it was so many years ago. I don't remember how I felt about the first chapter the first time I read it.
Yeah.
But you're about to get a little bit more. So.
Well, you have to be willing to let the story happen to you.
That's very true,
It's very zen.
I mean, who wants just a bunch of exposition right at the top? It's boring. Throw me in. Exposition as you go. That's how I like it. An hour of hard labor later, Fred joined us at the table, one arm protectively around Libby, who needed protecting like I need a pet armadillo. Fred was thin, quiet, and nowhere near as dull as he looked. In addition to being cook and waiter, he was de facto manager of the place, and according to Jamie's theory, was someone who actually spoke with the semi-mythical Feng himself. Libby was of medium height and buxom and exuberant and charming. She said, "So, what a fun place this is. Somebody should find out if they still have hag's disease, so we'll know whether to put pancakes and flounder on the menu." Fred and I chuckled. Jamie said, that reminds me. I got this from, I don't remember, some guy in Jerrysport. Watch. He stood up and stomped on the floor, like stomp, stomp, wait, stomp, stomp, wait. You know what that is? CPR for a hag's victim. Jamie thought this very funny. So did Rose. Actually, Libby and Fred chuckled too. There's no accounting for taste. Speaking of taste, we were all eating gyros and saganaki with baby peas and vinegar when Rich and Eve came back in, wrapped around each other as usual. We turned and stared at them. Eve was smiling, and Rich had that glow in his face that he gets after a wild motorcycle ride. Well, I said, what's it like? They sat down at the table with us, and Rich said, what can I say? I laughed. I cried. I fell down. It changed my life. It was good. The end. Thanks, said Jamie. Does that mean we're at the end of the universe? Asked Tom. What's the place like? I said. Rich smiled happily. I don't think we're in the same solar system anymore, he said. There was a great deal of quiet all of a sudden. Tom said, well, really, what's a star or two among friends? I said, did you get funny looks riding the bike around? A few, he said, not many. Jamie said, how odd is it? The bike? Said Tom. The sky's funny, said Rich. It's great. You should go look at it. Jamie gave an exaggerated shudder, which he did well. He was very big and much too handsome for his own good. Tom said, what kind of movies do they have here? Rich ignored him. I said, man, you're weird. That's Jamie's line, said Tom. Man, said Jamie. Rich said, the big news is I didn't see any signs of nuclear warnings or alerts or anything. We might be here for a while. Good, I said, and meant it. We've been needing to be somewhere solid for more than however long we were in Jerrysport. I know, said Rich and Libby together. About this sky, said Rose. Yeah, said Rich, his eyes shining. It's like really high and sort of pale, and there's a kind of white-looking sun in it. It might be a white dwarf. I don't know anything about astronomy, but it makes the ground look... What are the buildings like? Asked Jamie. Go and look, said Rich. Eve broke her customary silence long enough to say, in an almost inaudible audible voice, There's one that looks like a giant golden arch, and we were going to go ask if we could get hamburgers there, but it turned out to be too far away. Rich smiled a Mephistophelian smile within his beard and sat down at the table next to Eve. Fred went back to get him some food. Libby said, I could see looking around myself if you macho types aren't going to wimp out. Oh, said Jamie, a challenge. I think I hear a challenge. A touch, said Tom. I do confess. Come on, said Rich. Let's do some exploring. If we stay here, will it be imploring? Asked Tom. At which point, the first customers of the new location walked in, wearing that first time in a new restaurant look. The guy's hair was done in that puffy in front style we'd just left in Jerrysport, and he had orthopedic clogs on his feet and tight, straight-legged dark pants with a loose dark shirt. His companion had a miniskirt and high black boots that made me think of the Beatles. I decided I was going to like this place. Yes, Aaron, ugh, Tom's puns is the proper reaction to that character. They took a corner booth. Lily got up to go back to the bar in case they ordered drinks. A few surreptitious glances at the customers told me they weren't making surreptitious glances at us, which meant we didn't look too out of place, so that was good. Jamie, keeping his voice low, said, Well, Rich, did you find out the name of the city? No. I get the impression that it's a colony world, though. There seems to be quite a bit of off-planet export. Well, that doesn't prove anything, said Jamie. Why didn't you get the name? Rich blinked. Can you imagine walking up to someone and, yeah, I see your point. Did you find out what year it is? Local year 61, he said. Did you find out when the colony was founded? No. Or how long the local year is? No. Well, that's really useful, said Jamie. Rich said something not very nice to Jamie, and I cut in before things could get worse, saying, You didn't get any indication of when we are compared to where we were? When we were. I mean, you know what I mean. He shrugged. Transportation technology hasn't changed much. Like I said, the bike didn't get too many stairs. They do have one thing I haven't seen before, though. He got the I've found a new toy gleam in his eye, reached into his back pocket, and pulled out what looked like a socket wrench. I sighed. All right, where'd you find it? A sale in a hardware store. I traded the electric ratchet press for it. The one that got you so excited you couldn't stop talking about it? I never got it to press evenly. The guy up the street likes playing with broken things even more than I do. I sighed and nodded. Okay. I looked at the object in his hand again. What does it do? He told me. I said, What? He tried again. I said, Never mind. I'm sure it's important. Is it for the bike? He said. I hadn't thought of that. I could probably use it to... I don't want to hear about it. He sighed. Nobody speaks electronics. Nobody speaks motorcycle. Which reminded me something. I said, Do they speak English here? Some. Most people speak French. It's Canadian French, said Eve quietly. Great, I said. Do any of us speak it? Except Eve, of course. Fred speaks some French, said Jamie. Good, I said. He can take orders at least. I gave a listen to Fred and the couple who'd come in, and yeah, it did seem like French. They were pointing at the menu, and Fred seemed to be smiling and nodding. Maybe they thought a menu in English was an affectation. Should we practice? Speaking French? Asked Tom. Sure, said Jamie, ignoring Tom. Rose said, I don't believe I could do that right now. Why not? I asked, trying to keep irritation out of my voice. I don't think I feel quite like playing, just at the moment. I caught Tom's eye. He shrugged. All right, I said. I got up and went into the back room, opened up the case, and put my banjo into double C tuning. While I was doing that, Tom came in and picked up Jamie's Gibson six-string. His movements were quick and precise. Tom was built tall and thin, something like Fred, only more so. He always looked a bit emaciated, whereas Fred just looked skinny. Tom's hair and beard were light, whereas Fred's hair was dark, and he had a sort of fine skin that made one think he would be unable to grow a beard. And I never noticed before how many guys in this book have beards. Somehow, I guess I was not accurately picturing everyone in my head. Because reading it aloud, I'm going, boy, everybody in this book has beards.
Yeah.
It's just a real beardy time.
Apparently. Maybe it's easier.
Yeah, maybe beards were just more popular and in the last place they were in.
That is possible.
While we were checking our tunings, Tom said, do you know that all our instruments are antiques now? Scary, I said. Arkansas Traveler? All right, start it. Then we were lost for a while in melody and counter-melody and variations and the sweet sound of strings. Every time we came back to the start, I moved further up the neck, and Tom made his part more baroque, throwing in frills and rolls that ranged from old-timey to rock and roll. At one time, I heard somebody give a whoop, and I wondered who it was, but my eyes were closed by then, and I couldn't spare the concentration to open them. I started double thumbing, and Tom started doing tremolo like he was playing mandolin, and we blew it out the top, came all the way back, and ran through it once in its simplest, most basic form, and ended together on a bluegrass lick that I don't think either of us had planned. When I opened my eyes, Libby was there, grinning at us and practically emitting sparks. She laughed and shook her head. You guys are really plugged. It felt all right, I said. Oh, God, aren't we modest? Tom was doing his down-home hick smile. Jamie came in and joined us along with Rose. Apparently Jamie had spoken to her because she picked up her fiddle, looking only a little sullen. We practiced until about 3 a.m, then crashed on the floor and back, as we had every night for the past... how long? Strangely loves to call me while I'm streaming. Dude, I'm streaming.
Again?
It's okay. I'm doing a bit for the camera. I'm not actually mad at you. But you should come actually listen to the stream. I have to go now and read a book, okay? Okay, bye.
So it wasn't a butt dial this time. It was an actual...
Apparently last time it wasn't a butt dial either, but there was something wrong with his phone and I couldn't hear him, but he could hear me. So from his perspective, I answered the phone, yelled at him, and then hung up. And later he messaged me like, hey, are you mad at me? I don't know if you were streaming or what was going on. You just yelled at me and hung up. Anyway. I can't resist answering the phone on a stream, so I can be like, I'm streaming, do you mind? And then
yeah,
the people, I don't know why I think that's funny.
I mean, how many chances do you have to do something like that?
All right. I've done it during a live show too. Just answer the phone, be like, "Hey, I'm on stage right now." And people are like, "Oh God, I'm sorry." I'm like, "No, it's fine. It's fine. The audience doesn't mind. I'm doing a bit." All right, where were we? It's a long first chapter. Jamie came in and joined us. We practiced until about 3 a.m, then crashed on the floor and back, as we had every night for the past, how long? 2 weeks, maybe? Several hundred years? Depends how you count it. The first jump had been to London, and we'd stayed there for about 5 months during the war. That was when Fred had started letting us live right in Feng's. Then we'd been hit again and found ourselves in a lunar colony that hadn't existed when we were hit. We'd gone about 6 years into the future and landed in the middle of another atomic war. We were only there a few days, 3, I think, before we hit, and we found ourselves another 20 years in the future on Mars, and there was a nuclear alert in the city. 2 days later, kablam, here we were. Before I fell asleep, Jamie rolled over and said, "Hey, bro? Yeah? Do you have any idea what this is about? The wars? Well, no. Yes. I don't know. We walk into a restaurant, get hit by a bomb, and get thrown through time and space? Yeah. Don't be ridiculous. That could never happen." Yeah. He turned over. Tom started snoring. Rose, between Jamie and me, shifted. Jamie said, "Do you believe in God?" "No," I said. "I don't necessarily mean..." "I know what you mean," I said. "But look, I don't mean to sound all mystical, but why were we spared? Maybe we were in the right place at the right time is all." "But what is it about this place?" "Aha," I said. "Now that is just the question I've been trying to figure out. I do not believe that a supreme being or a primal life force or a great energy pool has singled us out to play Irish music to the cosmos. But there is something about this place that makes it bounce when nuclear weapons hit." Yeah, said Jamie. I want to know what it is. When you find out, I said, yawning. Tell me. I will, he said. I wanted to ask if he meant he'd tell me or that he'd find out, but I don't remember doing so I must have fallen asleep. Oh, hi, Strangely. Thank you for joining us. You just missed the entire first chapter of this very weird book that just barely explains its premise. So just in case anybody is a little bit lost, I just want to recap what we have learned. I'm going to try and not go ahead of what we've learned in the first chapter. What we've learned in the first chapter is that there is a bar and restaurant called Cowboy Feng Space Bar and Grill. Through some means, which even the people in the bar do not fully understand, it travels through time and space every time. Oh, Strangely has read the book recently.
Ooh.
So he's on top of it. Well, perfect.
Maybe that's why he was too good to tune in earlier.
Too good to get here on time for the beginning. The bar, the entire building somehow travels through time and space whenever the city it is in gets hit by a nuclear bomb, by nuclear weapons, which has happened to it 3 times already. It is now in its 4th location. Strangely said, "Oh, the dreaded Carolyn burn! No."
If only.
Sick burns. Yes. Then they land in a new place in such a way that nobody thinks it looks unusual. They just land in a spot and they look like they belong there. It's magic or science. So far, we don't know, and it seems like the people in the bar don't know either. The people in the bar consist of at least 4 bar employees and at least 4 more musicians who we have just learned just happened to be in the bar at the right time when it launched the first time or whatever. And now they sleep inside the bar because anyone outside of the bar doesn't come with it when it moves. Mm-hmm. Anything and anyone. So they're just trying to figure out where they are. They're on some sort of new planet and they don't know yet where exactly. What it's local year 61. That's all they've managed to figure out. And people speak French.
Canadian
French specifically. All right. There's a very short, there's a bunch of little sections in this book that are labeled intermezzo, and they're very little, short little sections, and they are just give people a little bit. They are out of timeline with the rest of the events of the book, just so everyone knows. They are either from the past or the future. We don't know which. But I'm going to read that. I'm going to read the first intermezzo, and then I think I'll wrap up and not try to read a second chapter because I forgot these chapters can go on a bit, especially the first chapter. But we're getting up to 40 minutes, so I don't want to go too far. So, intermezzo. We're all met together here to sit and to crack, with our glasses in our hands and our work upon our back. The work of the weavers, traditional. How did I end up with this job? VA linguistics, same as I did. We don't need translators for any of this stuff. You sure about that? What by the grand banana is all this shit anyway? Look at it. I am looking at it. The Godfather, Potemkin, Mutiny on the Bounty, Star Wars, Magic Incorporated, Chinatown, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, Who Framed Their motion pictures, entertainment. Just like, I know that, and the ones over here were reproduced from audio discs, music that was popular at the time. Those under the table were from written works, novels, newspapers, magazines, that sort of thing. It can't be all we have from the period. Not quite, but damn close. And we have to go through all of it? There will be 12 of us by the time everyone gets here. We have to go through as much as we can in 20 hours. Then we rest for 8 and meet to try and put together a passable facade for which we have 40 hours. What's the hurry? Got me. It's supposed to be something important, though. I can't believe that in 20 hours we can absorb enough about a vanished culture to fool those who live there. I'll bet we can come close. And Feng will probably be able to deal with any gaps after. Why don't we just get some people to have overlays? That way, are you volunteering? No. Besides, it takes more than 50 hours to prepare, plus 8 or 9 to recover. That wouldn't give us anywhere near enough time. It's crazy, isn't it? 12 of us are supposed to create a building that will pass for old Earth of half a millennium ago, right down to pictures on the wall, construction, technology, with no anachronisms in 68 hours. We don't even know what kind of place it should be. A business? A house? What? Well, we better get started, hadn't we? This is crazy. You might enjoy it. What I'm doing here is one of the best ways to learn about a culture, and I'm enjoying it. You would. Well, all right, I might as well. Hit play for me, would you? Thanks. Who do you suppose Clint Eastwood was, anyway? Got me. What's a 5-letter word for Dr. George or city north of Bismarck? Maps and bios are in the cupboard. Hand me some popcorn, would you? All right, so that did give us a little bit of a hint of what's only a teeny bit of a hint of what's going on with the bar. So, all right, that is our first day. I think I'm going to call it. Chapter 2 is a little bit shorter than the first chapter, but I don't think short enough to want to try to squeeze it in today and still get the stream done in under an hour, which I'm going to try very hard not to go over an hour so much as I have done in the past. Yeah, Aaron said this is where Ready Player One got the idea. Well, perhaps.
Oh, really?
Well, I think he's supposing that. I've never heard that stated, and I don't know when Ready Player One was written. So, anyway,
that long ago.
Is it a relatively new book?
I thought
Ready
so,
Player
but
One?
that could just be that I only heard of it relatively recently.
Yeah, I had heard of it before the movie, but not very far before the movie. Aaron is being facetious. He has stated. I kind of assumed you were mostly joking, but I've also never read Ready Player One, and I know very little about it, except that it has a lot of pop culture references in it.
Does not come highly recommended.
No, nor to me.
Okay, that sounds like we had very, very similar references. I have not read it either, but some friends did and told me it was terrible.
Yes. Anyway, we're not talking about that book. We're talking about this book. So, anyway, I hope you guys all enjoyed the beginning of Cowboy Feng Space Bar and Grill. Hope that's enough to whet your appetites. To Aaron said specifically lists of pop culture references, pages of it.
Well, I guess that's easier than writing your own stuff.
Strangely said RP1 bis rec ent. Ready Player One, got that part. Do not what. Don't know what the rest is supposed to mean. Strange is speaking his own special language. Anyway, yes. Anyway, I super love this book. I hope you guys are on board for this weirdness, even though it starts off a little bit like, what the fuck is going on? I hope you guys will tune in tomorrow. Honestly, you have no idea how hard it is for me to stop reading right now. I really want to go on to chapter 2, but I feel like if I do, this stream will go on. What do you think?
What time is that?
Maybe if I just stop chatting. It is a pretty short chapter. I'm just going to do it. You guys, I'm going to do it. Mm-hmm. Unless anybody's like, no, please let me go. I'm asleep or something. Although that would probably just be Savvy. So as long as it's Savvy, are you still awake? Savvy. I guess anybody who falls asleep can listen to the rest tomorrow.
And listen to it as you drift off to sleep.
All right. We're doing this. Chapter 2. Jenny lass, you stole me heart. Full de roll the day-o. You may have it, or any other part, full to roll the day. Jenny, say your mind, William Cavalier. Feng's always open for business within a few hours, subjectively, after a bombing, and no one on the outside seemed surprised. It was as if, well, imagine you're riding your bicycle or whatever down some street that you've been going down for years and years, and all of a sudden you go, hey, that looks like an interesting place. I wonder why I've never noticed it before. Maybe I'll stop in and see how the food is. Well, that's what it was like, it seems, for everyone who went by. For those of us on the inside, you understand, it was a bit different. When we were in London, we hired some locals to help out, but in New Quebec, we didn't stay anywhere else. But until New Quebec, we didn't stay anywhere else long enough to do any more than minimum business. 3 days is insufficient to build up a base of regulars. Some of the locals were pretty decent people, too. There was a real nice guy named Willie whom we picked up in London and left in Jerrysport. This was one of the things that made me so skittish about leaving Feng's. Electrical service was probably the trickiest part. Rich took care of that. Back in the States, we used 110, but I don't know how to say this properly, 110 by 120 volt AC outlets. Then in London, it was 220. In Ibrahim City, they'd gone to a reversed ground switched current arrangement, and in Jerrysport, they used broadcast variable direct from solar collectors. Our band quickly gave up trying to get any of our electronic equipment to work, but Feng's just kept right on going, with hardly a pause to get the lights on. You want to know how it ran? Well, Fred and Eve switched off doing the cooking and waiting tables, mostly Fred. Tom and Jamie and Rose and I pitched in when and as we were needed, in exchange for our accommodations and because Fred didn't want to hire outside help. It was a pretty small place, too, and with Libby running the bar herself, it wasn't much of a problem most of the time. In fact, by the time we had a few regulars, which took a few days, we were all into the routine pretty well. We were still short on supplies, but had begun to get ideas on where to get them. The hardest thing was adjusting to it being Monday again when we were all set for Friday. But that sort of thing, too, we were pretty used to. Business, Rich remarked when Friday finally rolled around, seems pretty good. The two of us were in the pantry cleaning up blankets and making a list of things to find a local supplier for quickly. Good, I said. Light bulbs. I think our fixtures will hold what they're using. They will. I've checked. And we should find out if humanity has yet devised a good way of cleaning a grill. Yep. Local whiskey, brandy, and beer. Not wine? Have you seen the wine cellar? After the way Fred stocked up in London, we don't have room for anything else. Got it. I'm going to look for hard cider, though. I agree. Good move. That makes sense. You guys playing tonight? If anyone wants to listen, I said. Eve and I put up a bunch of posters. Oh, that was nice of you. In English? No, we found a printer and Eve, paper towels. What did you use for currency? I spawned my spare helmet. Well, thanks, I said. Yeah, that could bring some people in.
Pond?
Pond?
His spare helmet?
Yes.
Okay.
As in, sold at a pawn shop.
You said spawned.
Oh, I meant to say pond.
I assumed so. That's why I was.
That was not intentional.
The words went together a little too quickly.
I pawned my spare helmet. That's why I was like, "Are you not familiar with the word pond?" I don't know what you're asking me for. Well, thanks, I said. Yeah, that could bring some people in. You should look around. I intend to. Vegetable oil. The name of the sun is Chaucer, by the way. Really? I said. I like that. What's the planet? Laurier. Cool. Bean sprouts or the local equivalent and hot peppers. That should do it for the stuff that can't wait. Good. Thanks. The mysterious Mr. Feng almost certainly appreciates your help. The mysterious Mr. Feng can kiss my ruddy bum, as someone or other would say. Think you guys will do okay tonight? I guess. I've got a few other things on my mind, to tell you the truth. Although don't mention that to the rest of the band. Don't worry, I won't. I think they're all pretty hot to go on. Shit, we've only been waiting to play for what, a few hundred years maybe? And I was always nervous about playing Irish music in London anyway, with all the real Irish bands floating around. This'll be fun. I hope so. We didn't often get called back for a second encore, so I was pretty happy when we came down off the stage. Happy, exhausted, exhilarated, all of that. It's funny how you never get used to the highs and lows of performing, no matter how much you play. True enough. Oh, hello, Michael. Welcome to the stream. Sorry that you missed a lot of the context of the first chapter, but you can go back and listen to the first part of the video when we're done, if you like this enough to want to hear how it started. Even Rich seemed pleased, like he'd almost admit we'd sounded okay if he wasn't careful. A young guy in a brown fur coat that looked too hot and his apparent girlfriend with perfect bangs had been sitting in the front row drinking in every song. They came up and pumped my hand while chattering away in French. I smiled and tried to indicate I was glad they'd liked it until Fred appeared to usher them out of the bar. I was pleased as well as surprised by the turnout, which was pretty spectacular considering we hadn't even been in the solar system the week before. Jamie had found a short, pretty woman with a whiny voice and chestnut hair. Or rather, she'd found him. I watched the courtship ritual for a while, then I shrugged and started putting my instrument away. I go through occasional fits of jealousy about the way women flock around Jamie, but I know it's stupid. This time I just shook my head and smiled while I tucked my banjo strap behind the head. Man? It was Jamie's line, but Tom said it. I turned, saw him staring, and followed my gaze to a small, thin, blonde-haired woman with big, bright blue eyes and a very pretty, round face. Good luck, I told him. What do you mean? Go for it. You crazy? What am I supposed to do? Walk up to her and say, "Hi there, you're the most gorgeous woman I've ever seen." There are worse lines. Shit. I shrugged and turned back into my banjo case. The flap that lets you get to the inner pocket of the thing has been broken for a few centuries now, so it takes major work to get to it. When I had the tuner stored, she was gone. Her friend was giving you the eye, said Tom. Who? Redhead she was sitting with during the show. Point her out to me if they show up again. I will. You should have said hello to the blonde. Next time. Rose was watching Jamie leave with his new friend. Watching may be too mild a word. Rose and Jamie have nothing going on between them. Rose has no shred of jealousy in her, and she isn't bothered at all by Jamie's attentions to other women, except when they do, and she does, and she is. I saw the look on her face and knew what came next in the script, so I went over to her to help her with the Jameson, since she was too small to be expected to finish the whole bottle herself. And besides, it was Jameson. Aaron, I'm sorry, Steven Brust has different ideas about Jameson than you do.
Oh, does Aaron not like Jameson?
He doesn't not like it, but it is not his favorite. Put it that way.
Well, I mean, there's certainly better whiskeys, but there are certainly worse.
Yes. No, I don't think Aaron would ever say that Jameson.
Or is Aaron just not a whiskey person?
No, he's a whiskey person.
Okay.
There's a famous story of one time we were having a party, a smallish gathering at Aaron's house, and there was something to be celebrated. So he suggested a toast of whiskey and poured a small amount of whiskey for everyone there, and then said his toast, and then someone shot the whiskey. Aaron had pulled out his nice whiskey for the occasion because some local thing.
I remember you telling me that story.
That was well, they haven't heard it. Which he brought out something nice because it was a special occasion. I think it was like a housewarming or something at the Paradox when he first moved in. And somebody shot the whiskey. And Aaron said, "Did you just shoot that whiskey?" And the guy was like, "Yeah." And Aaron said, "We have Jameson for that," which I found hilarious.
Yes.
Aaron points out that he's generally a Tullamore man. Tullamore do.
Gotcha.
Anyway. And besides, it was Jameson. Presently, Fred shut out the lights. Rose talked, I listened, and we drank. I don't get hangovers. I keep telling myself that. I figure that if I can convince myself it's true, maybe I won't feel so bloated, shrunk, dehydrated, sweaty, achy, numb, stretched, and tender the next morning. Tom has been growing gradually less sympathetic to the morning after conditions of those around him. He said, "Are you going to be able to play tonight?" Also, a stranger just said, "I'm never going to live that down, am I? But you do not deserve..."
That was strangely?
No, it wasn't. He's just being funny. You do not deserve such censure, strangely. I nodded while trying to pick burrs out of my tongue with my teeth, which was hard because my teeth had turned to foam rubber during the night. Water, I said. Water would be a good thing. Water, then coffee. That's what I'm going to accomplish today. Great. I have a plan, ambition, a goal in life. Yes. Water, then coffee. But first, the bathroom. Good. We're getting organized now. This is often how I feel when I wake up, hungover or not.
Coffee.
Okay. Water, coffee, bathroom. Yes, we have a plan. Good. Life has structure.
As popular a remedy as that is, coffee is the last thing you should be drinking when you have a hangover.
Oh, but it feels good.
Yes. That's how you got the hangover in the first place.
By drinking things that feel good?
Yes.
Well, fair enough. I find that as long as I am simultaneously hydrating, coffee helps speed along painkillers. So if you take some painkillers,
if you're hydrating enough to offset the diuretic.
Yes, exactly.
Because a hangover is essentially dehydration.
Yes.
Anyway, whatever.
I'm trying to stop us from talking too much because we're creeping up on an hour and I'm trying to finish this chapter. No, it's okay. I know we have a tendency.
Yes.
Aaron says 1 glass of water per serving of alcohol during the night of is the only solution.
That is the best. Yes.
True enough.
Also, make sure you eat enough.
Food is also good.
Yes.
Just in general. But
yeah. that is very true, Aaron.
Tom smiled, hooked his hands behind his head, and leaned back in his pile of odds and ends that passed for a bed. He lit a cigarette, inhaled deeply, and let it out slow, probably to tell me how nice it felt not to have a hangover. But I was going through one of my periodic fits of not smoking, so it just made me feel superior. I got up and stumbled to the bathroom, going through the kitchen so I didn't have to look at the breakfast crowd, whose sounds I was hearing through my fog. I tried to remember what time Feng's opened, but couldn't, and it annoyed me that I didn't know if I couldn't remember because of the after effects of the jump or of drinking. I made it to the bathroom where I splashed water on my eyes, cheeks, and the back of my neck, while making sounds that were not unlike a tin can and a smoke detector, achieving simultaneous orgasm.
Wow.
Well, that's quite a description, Steve.
Yes.
I made it to the bathroom where I splashed water on my eyes. Oh, no, sorry, I just read that part. I was about to leave, still dripping water from my face, when I heard a noise like someone was setting off a firecracker just outside the bathroom door. It was sharp, though dulled by the door, and had a particular echo that my memory must be exaggerating. Or maybe not. The echo still haunts me. Then there was another one, and I think another, but I'm not certain. I started to open the door to find out what was going on when it suddenly swung open toward me, jamming my middle finger. I cursed and looked for someone to be snide to. The someone fell into me and continued onto the floor. I caught him. His face, which I'd never seen before, was branded with shock. His mouth worked like a fish's. He was breathing in gasps. I held him for just a moment, then he got his feet under him. He pushed away from me as if panicking and crashed into the nearest sink, then turned around and faced me. My right hand felt wet and sticky, and I glanced down and knew that it was blood and forgot about my jammed finger. There was a big, ugly red splotch on his chest, burned around the edges, and I could see muscle tissue and, I think, bone. Then I noticed a red stain on the stomach of the pale yellow sport shirt he wore, 2 more high on the left leg of his dark knit pants. One of the leg wounds was pumping blood. His face, which was long, mustached, and dark, had a fresh scratch along one cheek. His hair was nearly as long as mine. For a second he stood upright, leaning against the wall. He looked right at me and said, quite clearly and distinctly, "Sugar Bear." Then he slumped to the floor and seemed to concentrate all of his energy on breathing and blinking. I did the only thing I could, which was to stand there, unable to move or even to think about anything except how ugly the guy's wounds looked, feel my heart pound, and say the word gunshots, gunshots, gunshots over and over in my mind. Presently, I realized that things were quiet, which was how I realized that I'd been hearing screams from the next room. I stood there, heroically paralyzed and staring at the guy who was probably dying or something. Then I heard Tom calling my name from the other side of the men's room door. "I'm here," I said. "There's someone hurt." I somehow couldn't say shot. When the door opened, it was Libby and Fred. Libby glanced at the guy, who was still bleeding and all like that. She knelt down next to him. I said, "Is there anything I can..." She looked at me, shook her head, and said, "Just go sit down." "Right. Sit down," I said. "Good idea." She said, "Fred, make sure no one comes in." "Will do," he said, as if he'd done this sort of thing thousands of times. Then I saw he was holding a small, flat, silvery gray automatic pistol in his hand. Something about the way he held it told me he knew how to use it. I said, "Did you..." My voice caught. "No," he said. "I'm being careful." I heard Libby said, "Can you hear me? I'm a paramedic. I'm going to..." As I walked out. I made my way through what was rapidly becoming a large group of curious people. I sat down in one of the booths and had coffee. I think Rose brought it to me, but I'm not certain. There were a lot of people gathered there, and I knew several of them, but I'm not sure, in retrospect, who they were. Someone sat down next to 3 or 4 gunshots, Mr. Keveley, Kevel of a way to start, to get an idea of where he was standing, When did you first hear you play sometimes, sir? But why is it that your band lives within the township of New Quebec Municipal Police Force? Criminal Investigation Division of Labor makes sense, officer. So we work here as part-time employees when we're not playing in the band of raggle-taggle gypsies. Oh, sure, I'm fine. Thanks, officer. Except this is the first time I've seen or heard the phrase sugar bear, sugar bear, sugar bear up under this kind of questioning for 3 fucking hours, and that is yours, so that must have been his orders to investigate the shooting death of a male Caucasian, height of idiocy, to let him just stand there when we aren't sure if he knows more or less everything we can get from Billy, take this and some water. You should lie down and rest of the time between now and then. We just have to guess that shouldn't be enough help him or her. Is that you, Libby? Thanks for being here, and therefore I may as well sleep for a while. My last conscious thought was, how the hell am I going to play tonight? Okay, that's not actually the end of chapter 2, but I feel like that is actually a very good place to pause for today.
Sounds good.
So I'm going to pause there. I forgot that it's confusing for the first chapter, and then it gets intense right away. It's been a minute since I read this, by which I mean over a year. I usually read this book at least once a year. Oh, good, Michael. I'm glad that you are already familiar, at least with Steven's stuff. I assume also with this book, but if not, you can always go back and listen to the first part of this video once we're done. I agree that Steven's stuff is so good to read aloud. A lot of the way that he writes is the way that people talk. Which is not always true of writers. I don't feel like it's true of me. Perfect time for a plug. Nice segue, Sarah. I recently released a short story collection as an audiobook. 3 short stories I wrote, read by me and my friends, including Strangely, who's in the chat today. And the experience of reading my own words and then also directing Strangely to read my words made me realize that I occasionally write in a way that is not natural for human beings to speak, which is okay. Everybody writes differently, but yeah, one of the things I really love about Steven's writing, and this book I feel in particular, is he'll use certain turns of phrase that are very much the way that that people talk, and he does it in the narration rather than just in the dialogue. I'm thinking of a specific one we haven't gotten to yet. I'm trying to think. I know we've passed at least one. When he says the guy was still lying on the floor bleeding and all like that, or whatever he says all like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a good example. So anyway, I hope everybody enjoyed our first chunk of Cowboy Feng Space Bar and Grill. I am very much enjoying reading it. Pepper is super enjoying listening to it, although he would enjoy it more if I would feed him. Thanks everyone for being here. I will be back tomorrow and every day this week at 6:30, Monday through Friday, until the book is done. So you can go back to the beginning of the video if you missed the first part. I'll also create a playlist where all the videos will go. So if you miss a day, you can go and listen to it later to catch up. I also have a couple other playlists of previous things I've done. I read Jane Austen's Emma. I read The Little Prince. And I read a bunch of short stories from Neil Gaiman's collection, Fragile Things. So, excuse me, you can go back to my playlists on my channel and listen to those if you need additional audiobook type stuff and you're enjoying this whole thing. I also am a musician, which is one of the reasons I love this book so much, because I feel like it's one of the most accurate descriptions I've ever read in a book of what it feels like to play music and to be a band. You can check out my music, link down there. Go to my Bandcamp to check out my music or to listen to the audiobook that I released. It is available for streaming for free. You can pay to download if you want. It's very nice. I appreciate it if you do. But if you're, money's tight right now, as it is for many of us, you are more than welcome to just listen to it for free. I know, right? Look at him. He's so cute. He's just the most precious and distracting little beast. Anyway, I write like drunken Hemingway channeling Stephen King, which is fairly choppy. It is things that read well on the page are not always things that sound good to read aloud. Some people are great and can write both. Damn you, Steven. Anyway, so thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks especially to the new people who just came. Welcome. Thanks to everyone who's been sticking with me through this whole crazy thing I've been doing. And I guess I will see you guys tomorrow. I'll try to be on time this time. 6:30. I've made pages already on my channel for all of the days this week, so you can go and click set reminder, and then YouTube will go like, hey, it's starting when it's time for it to start. Or you can subscribe to my channel, and I believe it will do the same thing. So on that note, good night, everyone. I hope you have a lovely evening, and I hope to see you tomorrow. Bye.